Hello viewers, welcome back to this NPTEL course on ESD, Education for Sustainable Development. In the last class, we were discussing about the skills, competencies, attributes of sustainable leaders. So, to continue with that, let us have a look on the empirical studies. So, this is a kind of study framework given by some researchers like the components and dimensions of sustainable leadership, like for example, institutional dimensions, social dimension, environmental dimension and economic dimension. So, institutional dimension, how the power of personality, leader's personality, then social, that is his interaction with his followers, with his colleagues, with his employees, co-workers, and environmental, like the organization's environment, organizational values, mission, vision, goals, etc. And the economic is the results, outcome of the whole activity. These are the components and dimensions. Similarly, the type of intelligence that goes with the components and dimensions, like for example, you can say for the personality dimension, personality or institutional dimension, all kinds of psychophysical attributes, and the social interaction, social dimension, social interaction is more of the emotional intelligence, and in the environmental, it is more of the spiritual, ethical, spiritual intelligence and moral intelligence, ethical intelligence, etc. And the economic aspects, it's kind of practical intelligence. So, these are some of the dimensions, components and associated type of intelligence that is very much relevant in the context of the personality attribute of the sustainable leaders. So, here we can see this is also a framework, this is also a framework of the leadership, this is like a leadership pyramid. As you can see, this is given by researchers, like one is the in the grassroots level, like the foundation practices we have already discussed, all the same thing has been given it here, and in the then higher level matrices, higher level practices are like self management, team organization, enabling culture, all these things that we have discussed in the previous classes. And in so key performance areas, like first is the staff engagement, strategic innovation, strategic and creative innovations, then the staff engagement and the quality. These are the key performance outcomes, concepts of drivers of any organization's sustainability or the leadership sustainability, and the performance outcome as related to more of, you can say that we have already discussed about the key stakeholders values, key investors, key performances, performance outcomes, all these things are performance outcomes. So, similarly, sustainability priorities are we have already discussed the sustainability priorities are environment, economic aspect and the social dimension, and the economic in the economic aspect you can say responsible procurement, engine of economic development, that means the organization's economic driver should move towards the not only the conservation of resources, but also the responsible procurement of these resources, raw materials, etc., and how the economic development can be achieved, the economic growth, prosperity, etc. And environment, that is the protection of the ecosystem in terms of energy, creating the clean energy, and then buildings, minimum carbon emissions, the water, the quality of water and sufficient quantity of water, then transportation also, what are the gas emissions due to the transportation and how, then waste management also, like the residual materials, how these are being managed, then greening and the biodiversity, all these are the environmental dimensions to be taken care of. And social dimension is more towards the community well-being, employee well-being, community well-being, service culture, work culture, and you can say sound soundscape management, how to reduce the noise pollution, environmental pollutions, and the healthy state of mind, mental health, physical health of the stakeholders, and the community involvement, engagement, and the employees well-being. So, these are the priority areas of the sustainability domain, sustainability approach. So, these are the priorities of sustainability in case of organization, and similarly the leaders are also supposed to look at this. So, similar, this is also a framework. So, sustainable leadership, as we have discussed in the context of European context. So they have given the sustainable leadership framework like economic sustainability. For example, economic sustainability. First thing is that solidifying the financial basics, financial capitals, financial basics to how to consolidate it, solidify it, then orient your business model towards a sustainable future. So when you are planning for a business activity, business planning or strategies, so you must look into the future. For the future, then that would be more sustainable and secure. And similarly, cooperate to improve your economic environment. So if you take it that economic sustainability, then you have to take into consideration these three financial basics, standards and foundations. You can say securities, then planning for the future. The business model should aim at the sustainable future. And then third one, these are the how to cooperate to improve the economic environment, like creation of new jobs, employment opportunities, sustainable growth, financial security, then making that means institutional prosperity, or individuals, even small sector, small and medium sector industries, entrepreneurship, all kinds of the things. That means how they can also prosper and be self sufficient. So these are the aspects of sustainable leadership in case of the economic sustainability. So now again, how we have already discussed about now how to map the sustainable leadership things, like in terms of scope, in terms of focus, in terms of strategies, etc. So similarly, for example, sustainable leaderships, how to monitor it, like first thing is that what are the existing challenges, emerging challenges, existing challenges are there. So whether these are driving performances, like 3 dimensions driving performances, enabling the community and connectivity, and managing the risks and regulations. So when we monitor it, first we have to look into the challenges in terms of communication, long term perspective, so long term orientation, in terms of the security, ESG data, meaningfully interpreting the data, meaningfully complying with the increasing political regulatory pressures. For any kind of business success, the political environment, that means ecosystem, then the resources, the policy framework, these regulatory activities, regulatory policies are also equally important. So how the organization and the leaders, they can comply with the political and regulatory pressures and the policies. So then identifying the long term opportunities and the risks. Every time they have to do the SWOT analysis. From time to time they have to reflect on their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and the threats, and accordingly map their competencies and the skills from time to time to enhance effectively and act proficiently. So these are the challenges, how to deal with these challenges, face the challenges. Okay, that is to mitigate the challenges. Second, towards the outcome, that is the solution. What would be the solution? Solution is that provision of the hard data to underpin the long term decisions. So data analytics, business analytics, it takes a very important part in the business decision making or the sustainable future. Like for example, the data that you are collecting from the market, from the investors, from the shareholders, from the consumers and customers, that has to be interpreted efficiently. So for taking the long term decision, or for taking any kind of strategic planning for the future. So that is the provision of how you are being able to interpret the data, utilize the data, and leverage the data through analytics, and it helps you in long term decision making. Second is that you can say tracking the past performance to inform the future projections. Always you have to link with your past experiences, past performances, to be very attentive about the present, your present situation, to be updated in the current status, and similarly to leverage your past experience and match it with the present, and look forward or assume or make predictions on the basis of the data and past experience about the future. So how you can project your organization for the future endeavor, future opportunities, future branches, future endeavors, future you can say expansion of the business, that also you have to deal with strategically. So visualizing the ESG data and analytics with the meaningful implications, and multiple interpretations from different stakeholders point of view, from different perspective, different categories, that is very important. And of course, transparency and consistency across the ESG standard, that is the company's global standard that you have to you have to always be very alert and cautious. So, these are the solutions. So, through this only you can mitigate the emerging challenges in data interpretation, then taking the well informed decisions on the basis of the past experience in the data interpretation, and then you have to follow that, ensure that transparency, consistency exists across the quality, across the standards, across the sections. So, here driving performances, enabling the community and connectivity, and making the risk and regulations, managing the risk and regulations. So, these are the prominent three, you can say three major activity of the organization and the sustainable leadership. So, sustainable leadership model, again it has been given like acquired through the how the sustainable leaders they acquire different kinds of experiences, through experiences and the democratic characteristics like their educational level, their functional experience, their intentional assignments, international assignments, experiences, their tenure, their track record, their experience, their reputation, their personality attributes, their dedication, commitment, all these things also. These are the contributory factors in sustainable leadership model. Second is that the leader's competencies, what he has acquired, his acquired and his personality attributes, like he has sustainable mindset, he must have the sustainable mindset, systems thinking, holistic thinking approach, relationship building, networking, and his personality attributes like positive character strength, positive attitude, you can see emotional intelligence, cross cultural intelligence. These are the competencies and the attributes and the skills of the sustainable leader. Then sustainable leader behavior, these are the characteristics, democratic characteristics of the CEO, that is the background characteristics and tenure and experience, etc. These are his personal individual competence in the skills and in level of intelligence. Then how all these things get reflected through his behavior and activity, that is mode of operation, like the leading towards the putting effort towards the fulfilling the company's vision, mission, strategy, goals, then develop some kind of a sustainable operationalization of this operationalization for strategies, acquire the management, then like engage the stakeholders across the boundaries, and employee engagement, empowering the stakeholders, relationship with the stakeholders, then how to continue with the ongoing communication and knowledge dissemination process, establishing the performance management practices, appraisal, use of ethics and integrity, transparency, accountability, all these kinds of should be reflected through his behavior. Then the outcome will be sustainable. So, the sustainable leadership model here focuses more on the environmental, that is ecosystem and experiential and the demographic features. Then the leaders or sustainable leaders competency, the skills, and then towards his behavior, activity, mode of operations and transactions and communications and management skills, all kinds of things. So, then only the outcome will be sustainable. So, similarly, these are some of the clippings, and that the leaders must need to become aware of aware of what is going on, like they are not only their own well-being, but also the well-being of others. Then what are then he must acknowledge, he must be well informed about the individual needs, strengths, weaknesses of each and every employee or the team member. So, they again how each individual employee can contribute significantly towards the goal achievement of the company, how they depend on each other, what is the group cohesiveness, and how the groups are very much coupled with each other with regard to their team goal, with regard to the communication, with regard to their they have the what type of responsibilities they have taken towards the responsibility he has taken towards the workforce and the external communities, what is his responsibility and networking with the stakeholders, different types of stakeholders, which responsibilities they have towards the future generations, towards the community people. So, all these things that the leaders should need to become aware of. He is not just he cannot just afford to focus only on the organizational function activities or the teamwork or the task related things, but also he has to develop this kind of wide knowledge and information, gather information about the community people who are both directly as well and indirectly related to the organization or his workforce. So, here as you can see here, in all of us we know that yes, in SDG 3 primary drivers are economical drivers, environmental drivers and social drivers, but here another two dimensions are also there, where if you can see the European Commission's sustainable leadership framework, like environmental, economic and social are there. But besides that, procedural activities, procedural in terms of governance, administration, rules, regulation, transparency and policies, etc., and the personal attributes, personal motivation, interest of the leaders. So, now again building the leadership for sustainable future. Suppose we want to plan the leaders, how to develop the particular kind of or brand of leadership, indigenous leadership for the sustainable future, then how can we proceed? So, here the like similarly in India also Lead India is a type of leadership training program. So, this core values of this Lead India form one of the pillars of the leadership building, that is building empathy, equity, inclusiveness, accountability, combining the traditional knowledge with the scientific methods, temperance, all these things. So, Lead India is a platform, is a venture where where the leadership traits, leaders or future leaders or sustainable leaders are being trained, are being nurtured, are being groomed by inculcating some of the positive attributes. So, here you can say, so this is suppose this is the logo of this Lead India platform. So, here these attributes, how these attributes are very much relevant, the how to combine the traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge with the scientific methods. So, perfect blending of traditional knowledge. So, India, we have a history of 5,000, more than 5,000 years history. So, where the traditional knowledge, our like our Ayurvedic system, our medicinal things, our cultural practices, our you can say energy related things, all kinds of traditional knowledge, how these can be leveraged and how this can be utilized in a better way with the scientific method. So, temperance also, and accountability, inclusiveness, how everybody can be included in the mainstream, equity, equal access, equal distribution of resources, equity, empathy. So, these are you can say the slogans, these are the slogans or the key values, core values of this Lead India leadership platform. So, here it implies the theory U. Theory U is like so how to connect the sources of inspiration and the will. So, becoming a leader for tomorrow, as you can see, self awareness, knowledge and skills, three things are important. Under the self awareness, you need to know about yourself, you need to develop reflective thinking, you need to know about your strengths and weaknesses, all kinds of things, self awareness, having the intrapersonal intelligence and emotional intelligence, etc. Skills and competencies like systems thinking, appreciative inquiry, then critical thinking, negotiation, networking, adaptive leadership, building trust, all these are the skills and competencies that we need for a leader, for a sustainable leader to lead the team. Then knowledge, of course, knowledge about the sustainable development across the sectors, all the 17 SDGs, what are the targets, the groups, then the best patterns, best practices for banking the environment and development, etc. Then climate change, the impact and the potential solutions for this sustainable consumption lifestyle, and all the UNESCO's guidelines, principles. So, how to take into account all these three, put it together to become a leader for the tomorrow. So, here you can say the theory U, actually theory U, what it says about this, how to connect the sources of information and will, like for example, first thing is that uncovering the co-initiating the intent, co-sensing, observe and connect with others. Then presencing, you must be present, you must be mindful in attending the current situation, the emergencies, the issues, the challenges. Then co-creating, prototyping the new, planning and hypothesizing and experimenting, and through the pilot study, I can say to create the prototype of the new, then in co-evolving, that is embodying the new in the ecosystem. So, from you can say it is just like the problem solving with togetherness, with unity, to co-initiate some of the common intention, common goals, common achievement targets, then co-sensing it, that observing it, connecting to it and trying to resolve it together in a group setup, in a group wise, or working together. So, then presencing, connecting to all sources of inspirations and will, whatever is available within the group, outside the group, all kinds of resources available. Then along with these things, then co-creating, having the discussion, dialogue, and co-creating with other members, other core members, other team members, then creating a prototype solution. Then evaluating this, examining this prototype to embody it, to integrate it in the new ecosystem. That means to adopt this in a fresh way. So, this theory U is being followed in the Lead India context. So, this is again the global leadership training that we have, global leadership training, how the global leadership training can be given not only to the that means it should inculcate, develop not only the traditional leadership skills, but also global leader competencies. Like in a particular context, in the country, in the particular geographical setup, yes, one type of leadership that is more appropriate towards the indigenous culture may be suitable. But when we talk about the global citizenship, global leadership, global partnership, then we need to develop, need to inculcate, need to nurture the new global features, global citizenship behavioral characteristics, moral values, ethical values, universal traits, etc. So, to have that means to transform not only the individual self, but also to try to influence people in the communities. Like so, to become a global leaders, we need to transform ourselves, individual self first. So, self actualization or the transformed self is very important. So, because this transformed self can only help in not only developing a global leadership attribute, but can also help in community transformation, or through him only just society, sustainable society, happy society, and community well-being can be achieved. So, here in this framework you can see as how to achieve this global, that means how should we design, how should we plan, how should we execute, how should we train our leaders to be the global leaders. So, these are the domains. Main first thing is as cultural sensitivity training. So, they need to be exposed to the different culture, cross cultural perspective. They need to understand these cultural cultural practices, features, nuances, and should be very empathetic and sensitive towards to the other cultures. So, besides their native cultures, how they should in cross cultural context, how they should behave, they should interact, how they should understand, and they should be empathetic. So, not only in terms of their attitude, behavior and tolerance, but also they have to adopt positively in whichever culture and context they are working. So, cultural sensitivity training. So, the leaders must from time to time they should be exposed to different kinds of training related to cultural sensitivity, or exposure to the multicultural or cross cultural or global cultural workplace attributes. Then emotional intelligence, of course, it is the basis of, you can say, all our affective domain, behavior, mind, attitude, sustainability, and our, you can say, all the emotional, of course, cognitive part is there, emotional, intellectual, creativity part. So, emotional intelligence is the base of, we can say, our personality attribute. So, experiential learning, the more and more we are exposed to practical experiences, real life experiences through different kinds of project works, group works, team work, collaborative work. So, we can gather the first hand data. So, experiential learning, all the leaders should be exposed to this real life projects, real life situations, reality oriented projects. So, that is a part of, that would be a part of the experiential learning, from which they can grasp the direct experience, direct understanding, direct you can say vision, direct experience, and relevant experience, and direct analytical skill, thinking pattern and understanding of the current problems, realistic problems, or what actually happens in the reality. Then accordingly they can develop the different types of competencies through competencies training, through skill training, through maybe sometimes maybe unlearning certain obsolete things and relearning freshly or new learning and adopting new learning habits, new then adopting the technological skills, competencies, updating them in terms of the global requirement, job skills, generic skills, soft skills, sustainability skills. So, all these competency training and skill trainings are also a part of it. So, if you want to develop a global leadership training framework, then these 4 things are very important to build up this emotional intelligence, soft skills, etc., giving them the exposure regard the cultural sensitivity and experience, or give them the opportunity to experience the real life problems, situations, and from time to time update them in terms of the relevant competencies, skills, global skills, competencies and sustainability competencies. And then you can see, so the global leaders competencies are these are been described in this way. Yes, first thing is that how can they develop the positive attitudes, then how they should behave like a positive people, and so factors that aid to become the global leaders. These are the factors. These are the factors like your observation skill, connecting with others, how do you observe and learn from the experiences, and then how you build the contacts, how you connect with others, how you grasp the whole things, what are the key qualities. Their attitude is that willingness to move out, like out from the one's comfort zone and to take the initiative, willingness to learn, willingness to accept the failure, confidence, then willingness to act ethically, positively, and accountability. All these positive attitudes should be there. Then undesirable is how to get rid of your mental, you can say mental stigmas, prejudices, all kinds of rigidity, all kind of rigid mindset, how to get rid of all these things. Similarly, managing self, how to managing self, managing people and relationship, and managing the organizations then. So, first thing is that in order to become a global leader, we need to manage, we need to transform our individual self. So, hence we have to develop a global mindset, always try to think in terms of global perspective, in terms of the systems thinking, in terms of a broader perspective, inquisitiveness, keenness, curiosity to learn, to know the new things. Flexibility must have the dynamicity and the flexibility in working condition, in working process, in interactions, in assignments, in discharging responsibility, delegating the responsibility, or flexibility. Then the positive characteristic strengths to develop the individual characters, and of course resilience and optimism. Optimism, being positive is very good, but you should not be over positive, like false positive. Optimism is not advisable, like you must be very practical. So, being practical, you must be optimist, like identifying the true cause of the failure, then trying to build up the skills and competencies. Being resilient, tolerant to to fight back, to have the patience and energy to come back to the normalcy. So, these are the attributes required for developing a transformative self, transforming our self or individual self, transforming the leaders, transforming the personality of the leader. So, managing the self or transforming our individual self, we need to develop these things. Then managing people and relationship, yes, definitely. We must give priority to the our employees, our workers, our people, their needs, aspirations, their always look at their strengths, their positive aspects, strengths, their their positive attributes. Similarly, we must enhance cross cultural communication, interpersonal skills, empowering others, delegating others, then teaming skill, how to build a team, how to interact, how to maintain the cohesiveness within the skills by developing how to draw the consensus, how to develop a democratic decision, negotiation skills, communication, negotiation, cooperation, collaboration, and a kind of service orientation towards others, helping out others. So, these are the positive attributes through which we can manage the people and develop the relationship positive relationship, then only we can move towards the business organization. So, then that will help the individuals or the leaders towards acquiring the business acumen like the vision and strategic thinking towards the future goals, leading a change. So, you can be a change catalyst within the organization, in the community, in the society, and you will be very apt businessman, business savvy. You can say you are the visionary leader in predicting, assuming the future needs of the stakeholders, of the community, of the society, how the society would be like down the line 20 years. You have the long term vision, short term planning, etc. How you are very how to create a organizational savvy atmosphere, work culture, so, and how to manage the communities, how to establish the relationship between the not only between the organizations with external organizations, external agencies. So, in the global context. So, intercontinental, organizational and the cross cultural relationship across the country, across the sector, across the segment, across the things like how to expand the business from one or two segment to the different segment like the retailers, that means in the FMCG product, in the manufacturing, in service, in automobiles, in energy, in data analytics, everywhere. How can we expand the business which are very much relevant in the present day context. So, these are the practices and competencies to be developed through training. So, these are some of the few key elements that we have already discussed, which are essential for the global leaders. How to build a supportive team, we have already discussed how to build a supportive team, etc. And now this is also a sustainability competitive, how to take the competitive advantage. We can say here people and processes are one driver, then processes, inter-processes, departmental mentality, variation toolkit, all these, this is another dimension. Then the process of environmental processes, that is another dimension. Environmental environmental attributes like environmental attributes like compliance, programs, non-competitive environment, these are the things. Then people and environment, these are, they can say the people, these are the interactions, interface of people and environment. This is the interface between environment and the process, and this is the interface of the people and the process. So, these are, you can say, the overlapping areas of these two drivers. Suppose these are the three driver, people, process and environment. So, these are the overlapping processes, like when the domain of people and the process interface interact with each other, these are the overlapping areas, and these are the issues, emerging issues are coming up, how we are handling those issues. Similarly, when the driver people interface with the environmental domain, so these are the interface, these are the conflicts or the dilemmas or the issues that emerge, how to deal with that. Similarly, when the environment and process interface interact with each other, these are the emerging issues, how to deal with it. So, if you can sort it out, solve all these issues, resolve all these issues sustainably, then the outcome will be sustainable. This is the net outcome of these whole processes, activities, interaction, that is sustainability outcome in terms of long term goal, in terms of holistic thinking, systems thinking, in terms of profitability, in terms of customer loyalty, in terms of stewardship, in terms of brand name, in terms of future prospects. This is the ultimate outcome of sustainability, when these three drivers interact with each other and resolve their issues, inter-driver issues, then we can come to the, so then we can take the sustainability competitive advantage. So, how sustainability can help us in earning an advantage over others. So, if we can resolve these interactive issues, interactive dilemmas and the conflicts. Okay. Now, I am completing here. Now, we are almost done with the topic, only few things are maybe left out, that we can continue and wind up the topic in the next class. Thank you very much.